Greetings. I am not going to be reading from the book any longer. There's a couple of things. First of all, today is the fifth day after the 1 year anniversary of Brexit. I don't want there to be any mistake here about what I understand Brexit is. Brexit was a very bad effort to cover up for the disrespect that was visited upon Greece and the people of Greece as well as others. There was a period of time when the people of Greece, supported their own leadership, rose up to protest in manners that were legal for their country against an effort to impose certain financial terms that had been determined to be unacceptable. And these impositions came at a time when someone else associated with the European Commission was doing their own form of financialization of the European people in manners that did not comport with what the primary aims of the European people were. This was part of what Greece did. I watched it in the manner that I did. I also watched the response and people expressing their rights to self determine and to let others know that they were not going to cede or accede to extortion into defrauding their own people was not accepted. What instead was accepted was a bunch of parliamentarians making jokes about immigrants as submarines right before they pinged the Conservative Party and talked about Brexit, which was only tolerated because there is an undercurrent of accepting some chastisement of white nationalism while a completely racist paradigm has been allowed to be meted out as part of the speculation that defines the European pension system. Now, I've watched it in the United States from another level. At the beginning of last year, around the time they announced COVID 19, Europeans started engaging in remote work options for people in the United States that were not under very forthright terms. But this was at a time when Brexit was underway. Many of these organizations were based in London or the United Kingdom. So while there's been this 1 year period that the Brexit's been occurring in connection with what is purported to be a global health pandemic, a lot of other things have been going on. Now, my understanding is there's been some contestation lately that the European Commission, outside of or removed from the United Kingdom and its Brexit, have had some differences in terms of various policy aims. And there was a admonishment of a sort from the United States in conjunction with Britain and Australia, and I believe also New Zealand, concerning the posture of the European community. But I also know that the European Commission has for several years informed the United States that there were going to be very severe tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, that were going to be imposed at the beginning of 2001 without some very significant intercession by the United States that was not at all forthcoming and has not been forthcoming and was never delivered on in any meaningful way. As a matter of fact, there was not even any education as to what that meant. What did it mean that the European Commission had put forth a tariff schedule regarding electronics from the United States that had tariffs of up to 25% or more? Nobody talked about this. But they also never talked about the Chinese tariff schedules that staggered into effect last year and are in effect now. They haven't talked to us about what it meant that as at the beginning of this year, the Chinese government put a 100% ban on e-waste importation. This is part of what we're dealing with now. And in the course of this, these false processes of alleged anonymization or confidentialization of information are very disingenuous. So there's no way to authenticate who I'm talking to and who's actually doing the work that certain people that are allowed to be parroted in the media are attributed with. So this is not an appropriate arrangement. If there is actual need for support, material, practical support, it needs to be material and practical. So starting today, I have put together a new website, and I am going to be working on it over the weekend. I'm going to launch it on Monday. What I'm going to do is something that nobody else has done, even though they were required by law to do. which is that I filed reports with agencies, mostly within the United States, but not exclusively within the United States, over the course of 4 years actively. Many of these agencies are in active default on sureties associated with assuring their compliance processes. Have there been federal changes to laws regarding disclosure? Yes. Have there been state changes to laws regarding disclosure? Yes. Have there been unconstitutional laws that have been affected under the pretense of what? In the course of all these other illegal activities? Yes, there have been. But nonetheless, as time accrues, I have seen myself personally how what would otherwise have been an appropriate time frame around which to report to me and or seek from me some follow-up if necessary in order to attend to the issues at hand, including serious charges. What is said has happened is there's been an intentional effort and campaign to obstruct and obscure the realities of the severities of the crimes that were being reported, and the defaults have accrued. There are a number of entities, which means there are a number of people reliant on the successful operations of these entities that are in default and are being disingenuous about what that means. Now, if I'm correct, mothers in the United States, if not elsewhere, are coming to a realization that what has happened is something that defies imagination. I would never have supported anybody telling any mother that that was the kind of choice she now had a right to. But then again, I have been a critic of this concept of right to choose for all of my adult life, and I continue to be. On the other hand, I have done what I understand to be a foundation for creating a process of accountability, and other people have a right to know that these agencies that expect for us to be taxed so that they can be paid for their work performance are capable of being held accountable and are capable of being verified for whether or not they're actually performing the services they say they are. So beginning on Monday, I am going to make the system I have been keeping myself personally public. I, in some cases every 6 months, some cases every 3 months, follow up on the reports that I've submitted. I look into factors associated with the original report, as well as how they may or may not correlate with overlaps between agencies that were either ongoing at the time or were discovered later. In connection with this reporting process, what I've seen is that people just sat on my reports and doled out contracts connected to aspects of them, some of which materialize in news reports of performance in the private sector. And others of them were farmed out as campaigning options for people that are now elected to public office, and without the agencies actually taking responsibility internally for addressing the charges. Some of them have also resulted in policy changes that unfortunately have not been adhered to with the kind of candor and the kind of consistency that we need. So I'm going to do my part. And I'm going to post this video today. And I am going to make one more video in this playlist on Monday, and then I will put the link into that video so that anybody who wants to can see it. I'm going to keep it concise. I'm going to keep it simple. It's going to be more of a technician type, or rather a sort of tactical, if you might want to say it, approach. And I will try to keep the commentary to a minimum, or rather I will try to keep the opinion in any commentary to a minimum so that other people can form their own judgments, and if they feel inclined can provide a response, and I will post it. It's 3:36 p.m. on February 5th, 2021. I was never confidential in any of my reports. Never. I believe that confidentiality, as I said, is actually a ruse. That it actually protects people that have every intention of stealing the intangible property of whistleblowers. I've watched this for years in disabuse of both the judicial system as well as the legislative process. But more than that, nobody else had the right to take what I understood were reports that were necessary for local and national security reasons, that I believe could have stopped acts of terrorism, that I believe could have prevented COVID-19, and just refused to get back to me for years. while they fleece the entire government and hook up processes that are not only disingenuous but are unconscionable. Unconscionable is a legal term. Have a good day.